Hi everyone, my name is Christine and I am back interviewing Kevin M. Downey. And today we're going to ask Kevin all about how to do email marketing the right way. Hey Kevin, it's good to see you again.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And first of all, before we go into all things email marketing,
Yeah.
tell me, how are you doing and what is new with Kevin M. Downey?
We're doing very well, very busy. Obviously, most know that I'm a boutique agency, just a half a dozen, 7 people, including me in my group. But we're very busy, busy on the recruiting side, which is good. Email marketing has been extremely busy. And we launched a new program to do outsourced sales reps for clients. And that's kind of like for particular types of businesses, but we're excited about that, and it's going well right out of the gate. So doing well, busy.
Okay, and the new program, is that coming along quickly? Are you facing any challenges?
No challenges yet. I think it's the outsourced rep side. It's for it's where it's a fit, right? It's got to be a fit for my agency, and it's also got to be a fit for the client, right? It's got to be a good marriage there. So it's kind of we're baby stepping into it, but a lot of demand there. I have a lot of clients or new prospective clients that want to go down that path, but we'll see. It's going well so far. So.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to hearing about that in future as well.
Yeah.
But today I want to talk to you about email marketing.
Okay.
We spoke a little bit about it the last time. We covered it very, very briefly. But today I want to find out just a little bit more detail. So first of all, my first question is, I want to find out, last time you spoke about how important email marketing is. So what I want to find out is, what do you like about email marketing?
Right.
And also, what are some of the misconceptions around using email? I'm sure there are many. So you're dealing with this daily with customers. So maybe you can share a few of those.
I mean, there are certainly some businesses or perspectives that we talk to that are, maybe a little skittish about email, that kind of thing. I mean, I like it. I guess I like it. First of all, just purely ROI wise for clients, there's nothing that compares to email in terms of return on investment. In lead generation, particularly in the business to business space. There's nothing that touches it. Now, that said, it is hard to do. So many companies struggle with it. But also it's got a bit of a stigma to it, right? My view of it is, if you're direct mail, I'm cutting down trees and using paper. If I call you, I'm taking up your time. At least with email, it's digital. It doesn't waste any trees. And I ask you, hey, do you have this problem or need? If you do, maybe I can help you. And that's it, right? It's a digital communication. So to me, it's kind of the least invasive of all, push marketing that's out there in the business to business space. And certainly not hard on the environment, right? It's purely digital. So that's good. But yeah, it has a bit of a stigma. Some perspectives come in with a little bit of, just cautious about it because they viewed like, are they spamming people, that kind of thing. But if it's done correctly, it's actually very well received. And again, it gets, great performance at a very low cost, right? So the ROI is really strong.
Okay, so you mentioned doing it the right way. I'm going to come back to that because I'm really interested to know in how to do it the right way.
Sure.
Because like I said, I think there may be quite a bit of misconceptions and understanding around email marketing. But first, you mentioned B2B companies and you were talking about how important it is. Now, any B2B company and even B2C company would be investing in multiple marketing activities. I'm sure, across digital and other areas as well. Things. Yeah. So, in terms of email marketing, how does that fit in? And what is the prioritization that, companies should give it? Looking at so many different activities that they would be involved in.
Well, I think let's start with business to business, which is most of what we do with email. So business to business companies, if you think at a very basic level, what would be a way to go out and generate leads if you had nothing going on, right? Your first thought, and one of the best old school ways, is you take your sales reps or telemarketers or business development reps, you get them on the phone, you maybe use some email now manually, and you reach out to decision makers and find out if they have an interest or a need for your products or services, right? Pretty simple question. Obviously, every company has different goals there, but ultimately, you're just trying to generate leads or appointments. The challenge with that is that decision makers are now very, very difficult to get a hold of. So you have to circumvent. Does the phone still work? We talked about this in the past. Does cold calling still work? Sure, it does. It just takes longer, right? It's very time consuming. And for most B2B companies, it's certainly not the most efficient thing to do. So if you have a broad target audience, email is just fast tracking your way to kind of skipping that and generating leads for your salespeople. So in business to business, it is extremely effective. And again, it kind of replaces that business development rep, or if nothing else, supplements that. If we're talking B2C, I think the way I think of email, it's still extremely effective. The data is more expensive for sure, which most people would be surprised by. The data is more expensive in the business to consumer side when you're trying to get emails. When you validate those, you get a higher attrition rate. So it is very costly to get the data, but it's very effective because you can segment groups of consumers by all kinds of criteria and down to geography. And for certain kinds of businesses, it probably makes more sense than for others. But in the way that I think of email, I think if you're really targeted hyper local business consumer, email can be good. If you're just broadly hitting the entire nation or something like that, I think there's probably other media, like a big company like Coca-Cola or Walmart. The email wouldn't really make direct response email wouldn't make a lot of sense, right? I would use, obviously Facebook display advertising on Google, so on and so forth. Like if you're a small local business though, email really effective in the B2C space. Again, hard to do though. So most companies don't get into it because it's difficult and the data is expensive on the consumer side. So.
Okay, interesting. So it's actually quite different from B2B to B2C, the approach.
Well, the business to consumer data and business data and consumer data is about the same price until you add the email part into it. So in business data, in modern business data, what I call people-centric data, and I'm not going to name the different brands that are out there, the business data, email comes with it. LinkedIn profile comes with those people, right? So you have that information kind of all built into it. Whereas on the consumer side, it's their residence, their address, all kinds of information on hobbies and everything, but email doesn't come with it, partly just because of the way they gather data, I think, and all that stuff, and trying to tie it into the residence and things like that into people. So it's a lot more expensive.
It's a lot more complex doing B2C from the sounds of things.
It's just more complex to get the data and it's just more expensive to get the data more than anything. The email still would work great, right? The whole strategy with email would work great. It's just more expensive to get the data. So sometimes types of direct mail would be less expensive to do than email would be on a local level for consumer to try to hit the consumer.
I'm sure that you have quite a few companies coming to you who've tried email marketing, but it's just not working. And so I'm sure a lot of companies have shared their frustrations. What is the primary issues or reasons? Why do companies struggle with email marketing so much?
I think there's two main things we see as kind of a theme. I would say if they've done it on a serious level, they typically take the strategy of the way a lot of people think of email marketing, and that's the graphical email from a company to a person. It's graphical and it's, hey, we do this, we have this, click here for whatever, right, kind of thing. And it's more graphical in nature. That would be the more experienced businesses doing email. They've done that kind of thing before with very limited response. Then the other side of it is the more modern way, which is using the CRM type tool that you would use with your sales reps to use that. It builds text-based emails and sequence them from a person like the sales rep to a person, the prospect, which is the methodology we use in my agency for clients. The challenge for most companies when they go down that path is that the CRMs have to tie into a Google Workspace account or a Microsoft Office 365 account. and you're sending the emails through that email address. And the biggest problem, you're just limited on volume. Like you can only send through Google Workspace, for example, you're only going to get away with truthfully 300-400 emails a day outbound, which just isn't enough, right?
Yeah,
like at the end of the day, I mean, if you have a whole slew of reps and you do it just for each rep individually, sure, then that can make some sense. But if you're a company and you're trying to do it through one funneled email address or domain, that's just not going to cut it, right? So you need an email API and or a server to do that.
Okay,
so you're sending through something that can handle the volume, that where you can do the volume.
Okay, so on that point, you keep saying you have to do it the right way,
right?
And I'm really interested to understand, what does that look like? So what is the right way of doing it? Can you take us through some of the steps and the process of doing email marketing the right way?
Yeah, I mean, our step when we sign a client, so we'll kind of walk through some of that, right? So we're pre-listing, so we look at what is their target audience and make sure you've got the right targeted prospects. Are you targeting the right people in the right titles, in the right industry, the right keywords, different criteria to sort that data so that you're hitting the right people? So that would be the first step, is to kind of pre-build the list for a new client. Then once they sign with us, we're going to go in and we're going to set up a dedicated domain for email marketing. Not going to affect their main domain, of course. We're going to forward that domain to their website. We're going to have to obviously set them up in our system in the email API, and then also go in and do all of the technical details in their DNS settings on their domain, which is, something we could show maybe, next time, maybe we could show it on screen. But I mean, it's just a bunch of gobbledygook in the DNS settings, but it's really important because it certifies your email address and your domain with the receiving parties out there. So you've got things like called SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are these technical things that are settings and code that you have to put in your domain in what's called the DNS settings. Really important to get that stuff right. You have to build some reputation on the domain you're going to email from. So we do domain reputation on the domain for 2 to 3 weeks out of the gate. And so you got to do all that technical stuff. And I would say that's the hardest thing for most businesses to do, because unless they understand it or have really spent some time in it, they typically would just bypass it because it'd be like, that's over their head. Like unless you really dig in and learn, it's hard to understand. And then once we get through all the DNS settings and the reputation management warm up and all that stage, and we launch a client, then we're using what's called a text-based email. So it's a text-based email from a person to a person, following the same methodology from a scripting standpoint. I mean, it's pretty typical, like, hey, curious if you have this problem or need. If you do, we could help solve it with this solution. Here's what I would like you to do next. And very straightforward. The same thing you would do on the phone, right? Is, hey, do you have this problem or need? If you do, we can help you. I want you to take these next steps, right? So in most cases with email, we're asking them to respond to get information or pricing or something. Sometimes we're driving them to a link, sometimes both, to a landing page. But in most cases, we're asking them to reply, because that gets the best response overall, generates the most leads.
Okay, it sounds like there's quite a bit of pre-work to do before you can actually get this up and running properly.
It does.
So if a company or a business owner wants to do this themselves, how long would you say the learning curve is? And
I mean, if they had enough time, like a marketing generalist or a business owner, if they had enough time, they could probably learn it over the course of about a month or so. I mean, it's just not just reading about it, and there's videos out there that do go into the topics, but then there's a lot of stuff out there that's not really covered, and just so many technical things that you have to dig in, and there's some trial and error that goes into it. So it takes some time. Let's just say that it takes some time.
Do you need to be extremely technical to implement it? Do you think you need to have a fairly good understanding of these kind of things, DNS, reputation building, or is it possible to kind of learn this from scratch?
I think you can learn as long as someone had the basic capabilities of managing, let's say, the DNS settings on their domains in Google or GoDaddy or 1&1 or wherever they've got their domains. They'd have to kind of know and learn where to put that stuff. But as long as they're somewhat comfortable with that, they could learn it. I mean, there's just so many different tools, right? Because, I forgot, you have to, once you get the list, then after everything is set up, you have to then take the list and validate all the emails to make sure that the emails are not what we call spam traps, or they're not going to bounce, because you want to keep the bounce rate to absolute minimum, below 1% if you can. So you have to just follow all those steps. So you'd have to learn, like, what are all the steps and the pieces that I need for all of this? And then what are the online tools I need to implement all this? Because you have the DNS settings on your domain, but you have to have the data source. You have to have the server or email API running. You have to have a campaign management system that actually is where you put the list and the email together to send it. And then you have to have the validation program that you're going to run on, which they're available online. It's all in the cloud, but it's just a lot of moving parts.
It does sound like a lot. I think I would rather come to like a company like yours just to get it done.
I mean, business owners are just too busy because it's going to take them too much time. In most cases, I mean, people are generally smart enough. It's like it's not like it's rocket science. It's just a ton of work, right? And they typically just don't have the time. And if they give it to their marketing person, let's say a generalist or somebody that specializes in something else in their company, they could eventually figure it out. But a lot of times it's just easier to give it to someone like me, an agency like us that specializes in it.
Exactly. And you're talking earlier about how different it is working with B2B and B2C. So I think on top of figuring that process out, and then obviously that extra work that goes on, you need to put into the B2C to validate and all of the different areas you spoke about earlier. I guess in terms of these companies, it is worthwhile coming to a company like yours to outsource it.
Yeah, and if you look at a B2C company, like when you consider the data cost, let's just say that the records were 10 cents a piece. It's probably a little less than that, but let's just say it's there. By the time you validate that data and you look at the email cost, like you could send EDDM direct mail type stuff for less than email is going to cost you, right? So, or about the same. So at that point, you're logically thinking, okay, let's just use EDDM direct mail, some other type of medium that is in the same cost structure, cost per message into a household versus email. If they've assembled a list, that's a different story, right? So if they've assembled an email list, they could also, they can email that list and do the Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever kind of thing. But if they're trying to go cold and reach people, I mean, like B2C, certain things are just going to make more sense than email will a lot of times. In the B2B space, though, like it's really difficult. There's not a lot of ways to reach people. It used to be the owner would be there, a decision maker. They'd be in the office. They're available on the phone, or you could leave them a voicemail and keep calling them back. I mean, with everybody being hybrid and remote and doing different things and so regimented and scheduled, it's just very, very difficult to reach people.
So much harder.
Yeah, and LinkedIn's only going to take you so far, right? There are some people that are big advocates of LinkedIn, and I'm not a big expert on it. I have clients that have used it to some success, but at the end of the day, it's still very difficult to really get the volume play on LinkedIn. It might be considered an intelligent medium to address. For if you have a very targeted list, I could see using it. The problem is it's just too expensive to do at any kind of volume.
Okay, so we've covered the process now and the steps that everyone needs to take. Now let's talk about content.
Okay.
What is your approach for your customers in terms of the content of the emails?
Well, as a general rule, we did touch on this, but as a general rule, it's it's first of all, it's all text. It's sometimes you're usually leading in with something like how you found them, and hey, reaching out, curious if you have this problem. If you do, I can help you solve it with my products or services. And obviously, there's language there in that copy. If you'd like to solve that problem, hey, I'd like you to do this next. And generally that's a reply. Sometimes it would be driving them to a page to preview something or something like that. And then once you have reviewed the information, is typical, like next steps would be to jump on a call and that kind of thing. Companies like that message receiving parties because they get to look at something first before they dedicate and commit to time. which goes to the bigger problem in marketing and advertising in general. And that's what this addresses, is that people are shopping more, looking more, reading more, want more information before they will commit their time. Owners, decision makers in companies, they are all very protective of two things: time and money. Time has become extremely critical for businesses and for owners and for people. So they're protective of it. So the old idea is you call, you say, Johnny, hey, we do this. If you got this problem or need, I want to schedule a call for you with Susie, our account executive. They don't receive that well anymore. Their response to that is always, oh, okay, well, email me something first. I'll look at it and then I'll let you know. That's like the stock response these days. That is all because people are protective of their time. I don't want to waste time. I would liken it to software having a trial. So SaaS companies will say, well, we have a free trial. I'm like, yeah, you have a free trial, but I have to invest hours of my time into your free trial to try to diagnose if it's a solution for me or not. I don't want to do that. I want you to tell me whether or not it solves my problem or need, right? That it's the same thing. And again, I'm a boutique agency, so I'm not, near as important or as big or as busy maybe as others, but like everybody's busy. Every business says they're busy. There's two common themes we always hear, and we kind of giggle in-house about this, but two things you hear from every single business owner or executive. Number one, they're all busy. Number two, their market or their industry is unique. Everybody thinks their business is unique, which they all are in a way, and they all aren't in a way, right? Because lead gen is lead gen, no matter what you're doing. So it's like they're protective of their time. They're very hard to get to. They want to preview things before they will commit time to you. They want to look. Sales collateral is really important now. I would say that's one of the most underrated things in business, in small business in particular. It is the most underrated thing. They don't realize how important professional collateral is in the pre-sales process.
Sure. We need to do an interview about that in future. Sales collateral.
Yeah, well, marketing and sales. Yeah. And it also goes to the thing of the way that people spend time in the pre-sales process in looking at your company. We have found that and I can use our agency as an example, when we send PDFs to prospective clients, I almost always ask, and some of my staff, a couple of my staff do sales calls. They ask consistently, they're told to ask if they have ever visited our website. The answer is overwhelmingly no.
Oh, really?
Because once they get that PDF from you and it tightens up what you're offering, what it costs, what problem or need you solve, and all that stuff, they don't want to go to your website. They're busy. They've got the answer right there. Like, that's the whole thing in pre-examination of a company to, again, commit their time to an appointment. Like, some of our clients will say, well, it's all on our website. And I say, they're not going to want to go to your website. They don't want to look around. They don't want to have to look around. They want the answer right there in one sheet, 2-pager, pitch deck, whatever it is. Right. And that's an important topic. And we could talk about that in the future, because I think it is a very underrated part of the sales process now.
True. And I think a lot of people are trying to drive traffic to their website. So they're kind of trying to force that. But it's worthwhile investing in that sales collateral, right?
Yeah, and it is important to have that collateral on the website if they can. They are, and for SEO purposes, it does make sense that they want to beef up the traffic to the website and for organic ranking and all that stuff. But at least in business to business, again, where our expertise mostly is, I just know that when you get collateral in front of someone that very simply, like a rate card, it's got, we do this, this is the price tag, here's the pricing, here's what you get done, that answers their question. That's what they want to know in order to justify giving you time on a call. That's simple. They don't want to have to go to your website and fish for it. They want it, or they have it right in front of them right there. And they value that because it saves them time.
Super interesting topic. Okay, we have to go back to that in the future. But let's quickly go back to email marketing, and let's talk about, this is the last question. Sure. Let's talk about frequency of emails. How often do you send emails to your prospects?
So for clients, we recommend once a month. I'm not a big threaded, sequenced email guy when it comes to, because I think it's tired and it's overused with CRMs and companies who do email light, what I call it. They will ping a person with an email, then they'll thread a second email to the first one. it reeks of automation. They get it all the time, and it just comes off as, again, overly automated, not genuine, scripting not very good in a lot of cases. And so we did do some of that early on with clients because it was the norm for email when we were first learning. We have found that just another email, very similar maybe to the first one, every month just to hit them again, that's basically it. Again, unless we follow the law, of course, unless they unsubscribe or they reply, then they could stay in the list to receive another email. And
okay, so you're finding that way more effective. It's kind of like that whole principle, less is more. So kind of sending them the right content, but less often is more effective.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at open rates and then response rates, it's like if they really diagnose or digest your pitch, they will reply to you very often, either not interested, unsubscribe me, or yeah, I'm interested. Hey, send me over that PDF. Yeah, interested in talking. We're going to look at this later. Like a fresh email to them in the future. It's not like they saw your email in May, read it, didn't do anything, and then you send them an email in June and they read it again. And it's like they aren't digesting that first email and then not doing anything. Usually they will do something. So every email is kind of a fresh look for them, or they forget about it. Obviously, they get communications nonstop. They're not going to remember your email in most cases anyway. So
sure.
Yeah, so I like a fresh email every month rather than like hitting them 3 times in 7 days. I think that's just kind of a tired tactic.
Yeah, I think consumers get tired of that and customers get tired of that.
Yeah.
And it does feel spammy when that happens.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's kind of replacing that business development person outreach. Just, hey, this is what we do. If you have interest or if you have this problem or need, we can help you solve it. We wanted to introduce us. Like, that's all you're doing with an email, which is what you're doing with a business development. Now, in business development, you're kind of trying to dig in on the phone and expose a little bit more and take them further down the path. But again, from a cost factor standpoint, it's like apples and oranges. It's 2 different things. So
Sure. Well, Kevin, it sounds like email marketing is a really important part of a company's sales strategy. And like you mentioned, it needs to be done right.
It does.
So it has to be done right. So thank you so much for sharing all the nitty gritty.
Sure.
And I've learned a lot. I'm sure whoever's watching has learned a lot. But that's all for today. I am looking forward to interviewing you again in future. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks again.
Talk soon.
All right.
Bye.